أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين، واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت، وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين، وعلى علي بن الحسين، وعلى أولاد الحسين، وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا، ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم فزدناهم هدى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. The scale of success for any thinker, for any philosopher, for any group, for any religion or school of thought, for any politician, for any political group, even prophets, even imams, saints, scholars, priests, rabbis, the scale of success, worldly success, of course, is how many youth they attract. Do they attract the youth, or do they not attract the youth? And I speak of worldly success. Has this person done a fine job or not? Has this person been able to attract the youth or not to attract the youth? Or hasn't been able to attract the youth? This can say a lot about whether this group, this entity, this scholar, this person, this thinker, this philosopher, is he successful or is he not successful? Are they successful or are they not successful? Those who can draw in the most amount of youth are the ones that are considered successful. If a political group has youth to draw in, that's success. If they haven't been able to draw youth, then they're not successful. If a politician cannot draw in youth, if a political group cannot draw in youth, if a thinker, if a speaker cannot draw in youth, then they have failed. While look at the lives of all of the prophets. Most of their companions were youth. Most of those who followed them were young people. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many of his followers were youth. He attracted the young. He spoke to their minds and he spoke to their hearts. And he was able to attract them to Islam. And the same goes for other prophets. Isa alayhi salam, his disciples were young. Musa alayhi salam, Ibrahim, all of the prophets, they attracted the youth. Their first followers were the youth. Mosques and Islamic centers, the scale of their success is the number of youth that they draw in. A mosque that is full of youth, or the majority of its attendees are youth, then that is a successful mosque. That mosque is doing its job. That mosque is worthy of support. It's fulfilling its obligation towards the community. It's drawing in the youth. That means they're doing something good. There's something positive about it. But if you see a mosque that is empty of youth, know that this mosque is a failure. If this Husseiniya, this majlis, it is empty of youth, then there's something wrong with the mosque, with the Husseiniya. It has to be fixed. It's not permanently damaged, but there's something wrong. Otherwise, it has to have youth in it. By default, Islam attracts youth. The school of thought Islam The school of thought of Ahl Bayt attracts youth. If you see our mosques and Husseyniyas empty of youth, that means we're the problem. Islam is not the problem. Ahl Bayt are not the problem. The problem's with us, and we will talk about the problems. Why is it that we are not drawing youth to our centers and our mosques? Why aren't our mosques full of youth? Why aren't our Islamic centers full of youth? Islam cares for the youth. You might say, who cares? As long as there's people at the mosque, what, the elderly don't count? No, they count. Of course they count. But Islam caters to the youth. Islam was a religion that came to cater to the youth, to rescue the youth from the darkness and bring them to light. Rasulullah cared for the youth. Most of his companions were from the youth. The Imams cared for the youth, and they catered to the youth. Our mosques should be full of youth. A mosque that doesn't have youth is like a park that doesn't have kids. You think that there's something wrong with this place. If you see a park, it's a beautiful park. It has the best of rides. But there's no kids. There's something wrong with it. There's something wrong. Similarly, if you see a mosque empty of youth, that means there's something wrong in the mosque. Something went wrong. There's a deficiency somewhere. We have to discover, we have to find out. It's like seeing an athlete that falls and dies. Why? He's healthy. An athletic person who exercises, who works out, who's always doing sports, all of a sudden falls and dies. We have to find out the reason, what went wrong. Otherwise, this person should live a long life, should live a healthy life. Our mosques should be full of youth. If they're not, that means we're doing something wrong. And we could solve it. It's not a problem that cannot be solved. It's not a catastrophe or a tragedy that cannot be solved, that we can't find a solution. No, we could always find a solution. We could always bring back youth into our mosques, into our Islamic centers and our mosques and our Husseyniyas. We could have them filled with youth if we discover what the problem is. What is holding back the youth from coming to the mosques, from coming to the Husseyniyah? If we discover the reason, we'll be able to get them back. If we discover what is stopping them from coming, what's the obstacle standing in their way, we will be able to remove the obstacle and allow our youth to come back to the mosque, to benefit from the mosque, to come and pray at the mosque, so that the mosque flourishes once again, and not let it be empty of youth. The mosque should be full of youth. Why is it that our mosques are empty of youth? This is the topic of our discussion tonight, inshallah. Why is it that we see a growing trend, not in one community, not in one city or in one state, but this is a growing trend in the West, that youth are losing interest in the mosque. Youth are losing interest in majalis. You see them 10 nights out of the year during Muharram. But all year long, they disappear. It's as if they go in a disappearance and an occultation. Muharram sets in, we see them again for 10 nights. As soon as Muharram is over, they disappear on us for an entire year. They don't come to the mosque, they don't come to the celebrations, they don't come to the wafayat in the morning majalis of mourning. They don't attend conferences, they don't attend seminars, they don't attend Ramadan. You only see them during Muharram and possibly on Eid. Why? What's happening? What went wrong? Why is it that our youth during Ramadan, they prefer to go out and to smoke shisha instead of coming and listening to a lecture in the mosque? Why is it that on Friday night or Saturday night they prefer to go out with their friends than to come to the mosque? We can think of several reasons. Number one, the topics that are being addressed in the mosque are irrelevant. They feel that they are irrelevant. The youth are not hearing what they what they want to hear about, the things that matter to them the most, the things that affect their lives the most, they're not hearing about it in the mosque. They are hearing about things that are irrelevant to their lives, that don't matter to their lives. They want to hear something practical, something that they can benefit from, something that will have an impact on their lives. You know, at a lot of mosques and Husseinias, the elders, they prefer that the speakers, whether it's the English speakers or the Urdu speakers or the other languages, speak about the fada'il of Ahlul Bayt, the virtues of Ahlul Bayt. While knowing the virtues of Ahlul Bayt is extremely important, our youth should know about the virtues of Ahlul Bayt and what the Ahlul Bayt stood for. What were their virtues? But at the same time, that should not be the only topic that we address all year long, and in every majlis, and every Muharram, and in every Ramadan, and on every weekend, we hear the same subject, and we hear the same topic, and the same repeated lectures, repetitive topics. The fada'il of Ahlul Bayt are wonderful. We need to be reminded, but there's also other topics that need to be addressed. Today, youth in the West face many challenges. Many challenges. When they come to the mosque, they want guidance. They want someone to give them a sense of direction, to direct them in the right way. Today, many of our youth in the West, they face many challenges: drugs, alcohol, dating, promiscuity, relationships. There's issues of homosexuality. There's issues of addictions. There's gang violence. There's misconceptions. Atheism is flourishing in the West, and some of our youth are going in that direction. There's real problems. There's real questions that need to be addressed in the mosques. There's real challenges that need to be addressed in the mosque in a proper way, in an objective way, without offending, without insulting, but providing practical solutions. Finding a spouse is a challenge in the West. The youth wanted a sense of direction, a sense of guidance. How do I find the right spouse? How do I know this is the right spouse? This is guidance that has to be offered in the mosque, and not just in Muharram. Muharram is just 10 nights. You know, some people, they expect the visiting guest during the nights of Muharram, the 10 or 11 or 12 nights of Muharram, to address all of the problems that they face throughout the year. Your problems cannot be fixed within 10 days. Your children will not be in the habit of praying or wear hijab or give up maybe on addictions within just 10 nights of Muharram. This is a consistent process where youth come to the mosque, they learn, they're educated, they're guided, they're inspired. This has to be throughout the year. There has to be guidance for the youth in the mosque. But if they come and every time it's the same topic, it's the same lecture, it's the same stories, they will run away from the mosque and you will never see them again. You will never see them again. There's a problem of the clash between Islam and Western culture. For them, they see it as a clash, although I don't believe there's a clash. For them, they see it as there's a clash between their faith and Western culture. How do they juggle between the two? We need to provide them with guidance in the mosque. These are the topics that we need to address. But when we address topics that are irrelevant to our youth, one youth told me he went to a mosque, he saw that the speaker for 1 hour was talking about the blood and urine of the ma'soom. Is it pure or not pure? Is it tahir or najis? If you reach the conclusion that it is tahir, what impact is it going to have on the youth? If you reach the conclusion that it is najis, what impact will it have on people's lives? What impact does it have? How will this youth grow as a person, spiritually, intellectually, religiously, from this sort of discussion? And so on and so forth. We need to set our priorities at the mosque. And then we put the blame on the youth. The youth are too busy. They don't want to come to the mosque. It's our problem. When we're not providing them with the right topics, when we discuss irrelevant topics on the minbar, of course they will run away from the mosque. Also, when there's illogical, irrational arguments, when they come to hear a lecture, but they hear a lecture that is based on illogical arguments, not reasonable arguments, arguments that don't make sense, they will run away from the mosque. They will run away. Youth have serious questions and they want serious answers, whether it's regarding atheism, whether regarding freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Our youth are educated. They go to universities. They specialize. They study philosophy. They study biology. They study science. So when they come to the mosque, they have serious questions. For example, on evolution. They'll have questions on evolution. They'll have questions on atheism. They'll have questions on democracy. They'll have questions on theocracy. They'll have questions regarding Islamic laws. For example, is it true that in Islam an apostate is given the capital punishment or not? And so on and so forth. They will have serious questions. These questions need to be addressed in the mosque in a proper manner, in an objective, scientific, academic manner. Not that when a youth comes and asks a question, we say, this is blasphemy. This is heretical. This is nonsense. Blindly follow. When we tell you something, blindly follow it, and that's it, move on. We can't expect this from our youth. We need logical justifications. Our youth will ask us, why is this halal? Why is that haram? Why is it haram to eat pork? Why is it haram to eat meat that is not slaughtered in the Islamic way? We have to have answers, good answers, scientific answers, academic answers, convincing answers. Not that we tell them, listen, this is the way of Islam. It's this way or the highway. If you don't accept this, there's hellfire. So what do you want? Heaven or hell? This is not the correct logic to speak with our youth. This is not how we call people to Islam and invite our youth to Islam. Provide them with reasonable answers. Tell them that pork, there's problems in pork, health problems in pork. With meat that is not slaughtered in the Islamic way, there's health problems. It's been proven that halal food is healthier than non-halal. It's healthier than pork. They need justifications that will make sense. Here, they will accept it from you. You tell them it's hellfire, they will reject. They don't want a religion based on fear, that you scare them from morning till night. Hellfire, hellfire, hell. They'll develop a vision that Allah is wrathful. Allah only wants to punish us. Wow, this is not the case. The same way that Allah created hell, He created heaven. Let's give logical explanations regarding Islamic laws, regarding Islamic ideology, regarding Islamic theology. The discourse on Islam today in many mosques, it's questionable. It's leading our youth to run away. When we have this black or white sort of mentality that you either accept this or you go to hellfire. You either have to believe in this blindly without asking questions, without raising questions, without being inquisitive, or there's hellfire. It doesn't work this way. Youth want to know, why is it that we have to give khums? Why is it that we perform taqleed? Explain to them. Explain to them the benefit of khums. Why there's khums. Why khums was legislated in the first place. So that the poor benefit from the rich. Otherwise, if we don't give khums out of greed, we don't spend from our money will be in danger because there will be poverty everywhere. And you will not be safe when everyone else around you is poor. Why do we perform taqleed? Is this blind emulation? Why should I follow someone who I don't know, who I've never met, and I take everything that he says, halal and haram, from him? It's because he's a specialist. Just like a doctor, you don't question a doctor's judgment. When a doctor tells you something, you follow because he's a specialist or she's a specialist. They've specialized in this field while you haven't. So you take the recommendations. So too in taqleed. We take what is halal and haram from the jurist because it's his specialty. It's his area of specialization. And so on and so forth. We provide logical answers. Reasonable answers. Our discourse has to be fixed in our mosques. We have to improve our style of calling youth to Islam. We don't use dogma, we don't use heaven and hell. If you do this, there's hellfire. We don't always threat. We show them the positive side of Islam. We make them love God, not just fear God. This is very important. Just because is not an answer. You have to believe in this. This is not an answer. Explain to them why they have to believe in it. Explain to them why they should believe in it. Because it's good. Because it makes sense. Because it's logical. If our youth find contemporary Islamic discourse to be irrelevant and unfulfilling, intellectually unfulfilling, and doesn't fulfill their intellectual needs, then they will run away. They will not come to the mosque. And we should not expect them to come to the mosque if we are not providing them with the right answers. If the mosque is not intellectually fulfilling with its discourse, with its lectures, with its lessons, with its discussions, then the youth will run away. A third reason that our mosques are slowly becoming empty of youth is because there are youth that are unhappy with the way we are running the mosques. They're unhappy. They see that in the mosque there's a form of dictatorship. In some mosques, of course, not all. In some mosques, there's dictatorships. There's one man or one group running the show, and everyone else has to take orders and abide by their laws and rules. There's dictatorship. In some mosques, there's no board of directors. It's just one man. The person who, for example, bought the mosque and spends on the mosque, he dictates. It doesn't work that way. They'll leave the mosque. Or there is a board. There's a board of trustees, there's a board of directors, but everything is old-fashioned. They want to run everything in an old-fashioned way. The majalis, the Saturday school, the Sunday school, the Thursday night programs, the sports, the madrasa, everything is old-fashioned. And the youth, they can only put up with it for some time, and then they lose patience. They feel that the way the mosque is being run is outdated. It's old-fashioned. There's nothing new. The youth, they want to renew their mosques. They want something new to cater to them. They want discussions. They want to have open circles, Q&As. They want to have sports. They want to sit with a religious scholar and have discussions. They want to have an open house. They want to invite non-Muslims, college students, people from your neighborhood church or synagogue to come to the mosque. An updated version of the mosque. This is what youth have in their mind. This is what they want. This is what they expect from a mosque. Some, of course. I can't speak on behalf of all of the youth. But there are some. Invite non-Muslims to come. Invite non-Shia to come to the mosque. For us to open our mosques. Make it open. Inviting others. For the mosque to be active. Locally, civically. Not an old-fashioned mosque that runs in a very old-fashioned way. This will draw the youth farther and farther away. A fourth problem, and this is in many of our mosques and Islamic centers, the long programs. You see that the program starts from 6 p.m. and it ends at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. 4-hour programs, 5-hour programs. Lectures that take over an hour or an hour and a half. And then you have an hour of, or 2 hours of matam. And then you have, before the lecture, 2 hours of dua, so to speak. And this, while this is all, it's lovely, it is good, matam is good, dua is good, recitation of Quran is good, lectures are good. But when the programs become too long, they become tiresome. They become tiring. Especially in the month of Ramadan, when the days are already long, and people come from work, they're tired, they're fasting, and there's a marathon of du'as. One du'a after the other, one du'a after the other. A du'a that they don't understand, they don't speak Arabic, they don't understand. And they have to recite all of these du'as. It becomes a marathon. They come to the mosque at 6, they leave at 10, 4 hours. Well, this is not practical. These youth, they want to go out. Some of them are married, they want to spend time with their children. They want to see their friends. They want to go out and get coffee after the majlis. They can't spend 4 or 5 hours in the mosque every night. The programs are too long. Why, my dear friends? Because we're concentrating on quantity and we're not concentrating on quality. It's not the quality of the lecture that we're concentrating on, but it's the quantity. It has to be an hour. We're not concentrating on the quality of the dua, but the quantity. We have to recite 4 du'as tonight. Dua Kumail, Dua al-Iftitah, Dua al-Mujir, Dua. While of course I don't mean to underestimate these du'as. These du'as are absolutely amazing. But in order to get the youth to come, we could recite 1 or 2 of them and then ask them to recite the du'as at home. It's about quality, my dear friends. It's about quality. If I have 10 minutes to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, conscientiously, with awareness, with khushu', with humility, in repentance, in admitting my faults and my sins, for 10 minutes I speak to Allah Azza wa Jal, it's better than 2 hours of continuous dua that I don't understand, with absent-mindedness, where I'm not even paying attention, I'm playing with my phone as the dua is being played on the screen. Quantity, my dear friends. We should concentrate on quantity. It's the quality, I apologize. It's the quality that we need to emphasize on. Quality programs, not the quantity-wise. Quality dua, quality lecture, quality events, quality programs will get the youth back in the mosque. But if all we concentrate about, if all we care about is quantity, then that's a problem. Let me give you another example. Fatimiyya. Fatimiyya, which is better to have? 10 nights of Fatimiyya and get on average 30 youth a night, or to hold 3 nights of Fatimiyya on the weekend and get 300 youth to attend each night? Some prefer the 10 nights because it's quantity. We want to satisfy the Ahl Bayt by having numerous majalis. Who says you're satisfying the Ahl Bayt by holding 10 majalis with low attendance? Hold 3 majalis, quality programs with high attendance of youth. That will be more satisfying to Allah and to the Ahl Bayt. Let's concentrate on quality and not on quantity. Another problem that we have at some mosques, and that is the same speakers every year. I know some mosques, they will invite the same speaker for 20 years or 25 years in a row. Why? Because some of the elders, and we have a lot of respect for the elders, we have a lot of love and respect for the elders. They're the blessings of the majlis and the community. But we have to worry about the youth as well. My dear friends, a mosque has to have youth. Our mosques were built for the youth, not for the elderly. The elderly are already righteous, they're religious, and we love and respect them. They're the blessings. But the mosque, the main audience should be the youth, because they need the mosque the most. They need the guidance the most. They need the lectures the most. Some majalis, some mosques, they bring in the same speakers every year for 20 years. Whether it's the English speaker or the Urdu speaker, This is wrong. And let's concentrate more on English and less on Urdu, less on Arabic, less on Farsi, less on the native language. Let's concentrate on the English, because it's the English that will draw the crowds. It's the English that will draw the youth, and not the native language. Unfortunately, in some mosques, we give precedence, we give priority to the native language, to the Urdu majlis, the Arabic majlis, the Farsi majlis. We put them in the main hall with the equipment. They get the important stage, and the English is in the backyard, or it's upstairs in the small dark hall. Why? English should be a priority, because it's the language of our youth. These are mistakes that are causing the problem. Invite the speakers, invite new blood, new faces, new speakers. Invite the speakers that your youth want. There's some speakers that the elders don't want, but the youth want. Bring the speakers that the youth want. And you could satisfy the elders at other times. Try to manage between the two. But the priority should be the youth. Bring them the speakers that they want. The speakers that will motivate them. The speakers that inspire them. The speakers that pull them to the mosque. This is how we will gain our youth back to the mosque. And there's another problem that we can't really do about. The sixth problem, is a problem that we can't really do about. That we can't do much about. And that is that there are some youth in the West, they find religion altogether irrelevant. They've been influenced by Western culture, by pop culture, and they find religion altogether irrelevant. They go towards secularism. They go towards atheism. Not just secularism, atheism. They feel that religion is incompatible with science. It contradicts science, so they give up on religion. This is a problem. These people will no longer come to the mosque because they find religion to be altogether, no matter what you say, no matter how much you tell them that Islam is compatible with science, Islam is compatible with democracy, Islam is compatible with Western society and Western civilization, you're not going to draw them to the mosque. There's nothing that you could do about that. Another problem, my dear friends, this is a major problem, and I see this because I travel and I go to different communities and different mosques and different Islamic centers. I picked up experience. I see that one of the reasons why the youth don't attend the mosque is because of the older generation. The older generation's fights and quarrels and politics. Their fights over power. Who runs for president? Who's the vice president? Who gets to vote? Who doesn't get to vote? Who's on the board? Who runs the mosque? This is a power struggle that exists in many of the mosques. There's politics between the elders, between the older generation, especially if they're from different cities. If some are from this hometown back home, and another group is from another hometown, and there's a clash between the two groups over power. Where? At the mosque. Who gets to be on the board? Who gets to become the president? And each board, each president has his own team, has his own administration, might even have his own religious scholar that he wants to bring. And there's fights and there's quarrels at the mosque. Sometimes it's quarrels and fights over the simplest things like parking space. Or sometimes there's fight over food. The niyaz after the lecture or before the lecture. There's fight over food. There's politics. Too much politics in some of the mosques. There's fights and quarrels between the families, between some of the elders, between some of the leaders of the mosque. This is a problem. This will draw our youth away. This is unattractive. Our youth don't want to come to the mosque to see fights and troubles and arguments. They want a place that is peaceful. They have enough problems in their lives. They have enough problems at school, at college, at work, or at home with their spouse, with their children, when they come to the mosque, they want a peace of mind. They want to relax. They want to be able to enjoy the lecture, enjoy the dua, enjoy the ma'tam, and then go home peacefully. You don't want to come to the mosque and see feuds and fights and quarrels over things that are useless. I went to one community, they told me every Ramadan and every Muharram there's a fight. There has to be a fight, a physical fight. And this is not just one mosque. I've been to many mosques where they've had fights. I've seen fights in many mosques. I've seen several fights, several physical fights. This has to stop. Otherwise our youth will run away from the mosques and will never come back again. There's a struggle for power in some mosques. There's egos. They think that they can, if they dominate over the mosque, they're presidential. Now they're very powerful because he's now the president of the mosque. There's inferiority complexes. Some people who have failed in their social life and their businesses, they come and take out their anger at the mosque or at the board. They want to become president because they failed in everything else, not because they want to serve the mosque or the Husseiniya. This is a problem. We need people that are sincere. The elders, the older generation, the leaders of the mosque, the people on the board, they have to be people who are sincere. They're on the board not to serve themselves and their interests, but to serve the people, to serve the community, to serve the youth and the children, to attract them to the mosque. It's about sincerity. You don't have to be in power. If the person who's running the mosque is running it in a good fashion, in an efficient fashion, you don't have to be on the board. Let them run the mosque. Also, a major problem in some Islamic centers is the religious scholar. Yes, myself and my colleagues, we have to take some of the fault. Some of the religious scholars of the mosque, they don't tend to the needs of the youth. They don't cater to the youth. They don't click with the youth. There's no chemistry, there's no bond between the religious scholar, the alim, and the youth in the mosque. The youth of the mosque, they don't find the alim, the resident scholar, to be relatable. He only attracts the elderly. He doesn't attract the youth. This is a problem. This is a problem. The resident alim has to click with the youth. There has to be chemistry between him and the youth. He has to sit with the youth, have discussions. He has to be approachable. There are some resident ulama that are unapproachable. They're unapproachable. There are some that have a monopoly over the mosque. The resident alim, he has a monopoly over the mosque. He doesn't allow certain speakers to be invited. He has a blacklist on names of scholars and speakers that are not allowed to come to the mosque. Why? This is the house of Allah. وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. This is a house of Allah. You cannot forbid anyone. Let the youth bring the speakers they feel relatable to, they're inspired by, they're motivated by. Or there's a resident alim that doesn't speak English. They can only speak the native language. If you don't speak English, how can you draw the youth? How can you answer their questions? How can you deal with their problems? Sometimes it's time to pass on the torch. The elders of the resident ulama that are elders, perhaps they should think of passing on the torch to new resident ulama, younger resident ulama, those who speak the language, those who know the culture, those who have studied well in Qom or Najaf or Karbala or Mashhad or in Damascus, those who have come fresh from Hawza, who master the English language, who know the culture, who can connect with the youth. Let's pass on the torch to them. Shouldn't be a monopoly. If I am running a mosque where I can't, or I'm the resident alim of a mosque and I can't draw in the youth, it's time for me to pass on the torch. Let someone else come and bring in the youth to the mosque. We need wazn ulama that can relate to the youth, that are open-minded, that can answer questions, that don't push people away and tell them they're not allowed to ask questions, and that this question could lead them to hellfire. No. Ulama that have a strong Hawzawi background, that don't feel insecure by pushing away other scholars and speakers. No, they're scholars themselves. They have a solid Hawzawi background. Our communities shouldn't settle for anyone that claims to be a scholar. We should have high standards for our resident ulama. There must be chemistry between the alim and the youth. And a mosque, when they decide to bring a resident alim, they should get the okay from the youth, not just the elders. There are some, they only ask the elders, what do you think of this sheikh or this sayyid or this alim, to make him the resident alim. Get the opinion of the youth as well. What do you think of this sayyid? What do you think of this sheikh? Should we make this person a resident alim? See if there's any chemistry between them. To sum up what we talked about, to sum up the solutions that we could provide for our mosques to pull in the youth. Bring better speakers. We need to raise the bar when it comes to speakers. Let's improve our choice of speakers. We don't have to bring in the same speaker that we've been bringing in for the past 25 years. Let's bring fresh faces and new faces. Let's address the topics and needs of the youth. Let's see what they want to hear about, what they want to discuss, what they want to hear on the minbar. What are their problems and challenges? And we ask our speakers to address them. Also, this is very important. Let's give youth leadership positions. Unfortunately, at our mosques, we only go to the youth when we need them. We need them when we need them to help set up the chairs, set up the block, set up the mic. Only when we need them for labor, for work, for volunteering, we go to them. But we don't go to them for leadership. We don't give our youth leadership positions. We don't put them on the board. We don't make a youth a president or vice president. Although I've seen some communities that do so, but this is rare. And I hope that this experience expands to other mosques. Let's give the youth leadership positions. Come and tell them, look, I want you to run for president. I want you to run for vice president. I want you to take charge of the mosque. Let's bring in new faces, fresh blood. Let them run the mosque the way that they feel a mosque should be run in the West. And for the elders, they should pass on the torch. They shouldn't cling on to a chair or a position. We should learn to pass on the responsibility to others, pass on the torch to others. This is very important. And also, enough politics in the mosque, enough power struggles in the mosque, enough fights and enough quarrels in the mosque. And finally, let's shorten the programs at the mosque. Let's emphasize on quality and not on quantity. Let's make our programs short and sweet, and inshallah we will see youth come to the mosque bi'idhnillah. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when we look at Karbala, when we look at the day of Ashura, we see that Imam Hussein's main companions were youth. Imam Hussein was surrounded by youth. There were elders like Habib ibn Mudahir, and there were youth that surrounded Imam Hussein, that fought with Imam Hussein. They were inspired by Imam Hussein. They were motivated by Imam Hussein. Like Al Qasim ibn al Hassan. Al Qasim was 14 years old. On the night of Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam told his companions that tomorrow we will all be martyred. We will all be killed. Al Qasim, he asked, and what about me, my uncle? Will I be among the martyrs? Will I be among those that will be killed? Imam Hussein saw that this is a difficult question to answer. He told him, Bunay, wa kayfa al-mawtu andak? How do you view death, my son? He said, Wallahi ya am fi nusratika ahla min al-asal. If death is in your support, to support you, then it is sweeter than honey. On the day of Ashura, this was the night of Ashura. On the day of Ashura, Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan comes to ask Imam Hussein for permission to enter the battlefield. The Imam refuses. Why? Because Al-Qasim was an orphan. He grew up in the house of Imam Hussein. From the age of 4 till 14, for 10 years, he grew up in the house of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein raised him. This was the only memory that Imam Hussein had of his brother Al-Hasan, so he refused. Al-Qasim went and brought a letter from his father addressed to Imam Hussein. My brother, a day will come in which you will need supporters, you will need soldiers, you will be left alone. Allow my son to stand and support you. Imam Hussein alayhi salam held Al-Qasim and he cried and he wept. He said his farewell. He gave Al-Qasim his turban, the turban of his father, Imam al-Hasan, and the sword of Imam al-Hasan. Al-Qasim, before entering the battlefield, he went to his mother, Ramla, to say his farewell, to bid her farewell. It's as if Ramla was telling her son, my son, I was waiting for you to get married. I was waiting to see your wedding. I was waiting to see your children. But today you've decided to depart and to leave me alone. Al-Qasim alayhi salam enters the battlefield and he fights bravely. Hamid ibn Muslim says that I saw a young man, his face glowing like a full moon. He said, my comrade said, by God, I will make sure that his uncle sits and mourns him. Al-Qasim, his sandal lace breaks. So he kneels to fix his sandal lace. He says, my comrade went towards him and he took a strike on his head. Al-Qasim alayhi salam began to bleed. He fell on the ground. Amma, assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. فهذا جدي قد سقاني بكأسه الأوفى شربة لا أظمأ بعدها أبدا. My uncle, Ya Aba Abdullah, peace be upon you. My grandfather has quenched my thirst with a cup of water from heaven, and there's a cup waiting for you. Imam Hussein alayhi salam rushed to Al-Qasim. He wiped the blood and sand from his face. يَعِزُّ عَلَىٰ عَمِّكَ أَن تَدْعُوهُ فَلَا يُجِيبُكَ. My dear nephew, it is with sorrow that you call your uncle, but he cannot reply. أَوْ يُجِيبُكَ فَلَا يُعِينُكَ. Or he replies, but he cannot help you. أَوْ يُعِينُكَ فَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْكَ شَيْئًا. Or he helps you, but he cannot rescue you. تَبًّا لِقَوْمٍ قَتَلُوكَ. Cursed is the nation that killed you. Cursed is the nation that fought you. وَمَنْ كان خصمهم يوم القيامة جدك وأبوك. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he brought back Al-Qasim back to the tent. He put him next to Ali al-Akbar. He would look for moments at Ali al-Akbar and shed his tears. He would look at Al-Qasim and shed his tears. As Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha, she came to Aba Abdullah. She told him, Akhi Aba Abdullah, Ramla and Layla want to come and mourn their children, but they're embarrassed of you. They're shy of you. Please leave so that they can come and mourn. Imam Hussein left. Layla came and sat next to the head of Ali al-Akbar. Ramla came and sat next to the head of Al-Qasim, and they both wept for their martyrs. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا خوفا إلا آمنته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا شملا إلا جمعته ولا مرضا إلا شفيته ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.